For 18 long years, one woman faced complete solitude on a windswept Pacific island, possessing nothing but her will to survive. Left behind in 1835 on San Nicolas Island, she endured harsh storms, limited drinking water, and the deafening silence of being the last human there. As seasons turned to years, she lived unaware that she had become the final survivor of her people. This is not a story of escape. It is a story of lasting, of holding on to memory, identity, and humanity. When everything else has vanished, she would later be known as Juana Maria. That name was given after her rescue, borrowed from the culture that found her. Her true name, spoken in her lost language, carrying the history of her tribe, was never written down. It faded with the Nicoleno people, erased by violence, illness, and forced exile. When she was stranded in 1835, she wasn't just alone. She was the last living voice of an entire civilization. She may not have known it then, but she knew one thing completely. She was on her own. San Nicolas Island sits alone in the Pacific, about 60 miles from Southern California. Shaped more by sea and wind than by humans, it is a place of constant ocean gusts, cool fog, little fresh water, and scarce shelter. Plants grow low, bent by salt and breeze. Cliffs dive straight into restless waves. Life here demands adaptation, yet the waters around it thrive. Thick kelp forests, shelterfish, seabirds, and seals. Abalone cover rocks. The island provides, but only to those who know its rules. Long before Europeans came, the Nicoleno people lived here for thousands of years. They didn't live easily. They lived skillfully. They fished kelp beds, gathered abalone, hunted seals, and built ocean-worthy boats. Their isolation once shielded them. That changed in the early 1800s, when Russian fur hunters arrived for sea otter pelts. They brought violence and disease. Within decades, the Nicoleno way of life crumbled. By the 1830s, only a handful remained vulnerable, dependent, and exposed. In 1835, Spanish missionaries decided to move the last Nicoleno to the mainland. They called it protection. What followed was chaos. A schooner arrived to take them. A storm loomed. People rushed aboard with whatever they could carry. In the rush, one person stayed behind. Whether forgotten, left by choice, or searching for a child, no one truly knows. What is certain is this: when the ship sailed away, she was the only one left on the island. She may not have been completely alone at first. Some tell of a young child with her, possibly until he drowned in rough waters. If true, that loss severed her last human bond. From then on, no one spoke her language. No one shared her memories. The quiet was absolute. To survive here took more than luck. It took mastery. Using knowledge learned from childhood, she built shelter from what the island offered. One home was framed with the bones of a beached whale, filled with driftwood, grass, and soil. Others were lighter, movable, suited to weather and need. Every choice considered wind, safety, and food. She made clothes from bird feathers and seal skins, sewn carefully with sinew. Stitching without metal needles is slow, precise labor. Mistakes undo days of work. Stone tools must be constantly resharpened. Bone needles break. Everything wears out and must be remade by hand. Archaeology shows these were not rushed makeshifts. They were thoughtful, refined tools. Food came from ocean and land. She collected shellfish, caught fish, hunted birds, and sometimes seals. She dried meat in the wind, timed harvests with tides and seasons. Freshwater rare on the island was caught in rock hollows or stored in containers. She shaped herself through repetition. She learned exactly how much she needed and how little she could afford to waste. The physical work was endless, but the deeper battle was in the mind. Total solitude is a pressure few ever face. Without another voice, without shared words, the mind can turn inward. Many in such isolation fall into madness or despair. Se dit not. Evidence says she sang songs from her culture, remembered by heart. She spoke aloud, to animals, to spirits, to herself. She mocked time with notches or sticks, small ways to order a world that no longer recognized her. These weren't signs of breaking, they were acts of holding on, of keeping her identity alive when no one was there to witness it. Years passed, storms came. Bones bleached in the sun. She rebuilt shelters, she refined her tools. Seasons repeated. No ship came, no search party arrived. On the mainland, the relocated Nicoleno died from disease within years. Without knowing, she became the last living record of her people's language, stories, and wisdom. In 1853, nearly 20 years after she was left sea otter hunter, Captain George Nedever heard whispers of signs of life on San Nicolas Island. The tailies were faint, but didn't fade. Curious, he set out with a crew. When they landed, they found proof of someone living there. Shelters, tools, food remains, but no person. Only on their last night did she appear. She had been watching, silent, cautious. When she finally approached, she brought roasted wild onions. It was an offering that needed no translation. No one spoke her language. She knew none of theirs. Yet understanding passed. Between them, she sang a song a crew member later recalled. One that spoke of peace, of being ready. After 18 years alone, she chose to go with them. She was taken to Santa Barbara, into a world louder and fuller than any she had known for almost 2 decades. She stayed with Nedeva's family. People came to see her, drawn by wonder and sadness. She looked upon horses, tools, buildings, all strange to her. By most accounts, she showed curiosity, not fear, calm, not bitterness. She did not speak of what she suffered. She did not perform her pain. But her body struggled. Within weeks, she fell ill, used to a simple, protein-rich diet. Her stomach couldn't handle new foods. New bacteria, new illnesses overwhelmed her. Dysentery likely took her life. 7 weeks after rescue, she died. The irony is heavy. She survived 18 years in a fierce land, only to be taken by the sudden plenty of civilization. Her strength, shaped by scarcity, couldn't withstand sudden surplus. Before she died, she was baptized by a Franciscan priest and given the name Juana Maria. The only name history now keeps. That moment was the first and last time her identity was formally written. When she died in October 1853, she was buried in an unmarked grave at Santa Barbara Mission, laid among strangers because no one knew her language well enough to record her words or wishes. The missioness, burial log noted, only the Indian woman brought from San Nicolas Island. For years, her grave stayed unnamed. Only in the early 1900s was a small plaque placed a late attempt to honor a life history almost missed. What she left behind fared little better. Tools, water jars, clothing, and bone needles from the island were once kept in museums, but many were lost in the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire. A remarkable dress made of cormorant feathers was sent away for study. It disappeared and was never found. Years later, her story returned through books. Scott Odell, S. Island of the Blue Dolphins, brought a fictional version of her life to readers everywhere. Archaeologists later found proof on the island whalebone shelters, stone tools, food remains, evidence she lived not as legend, but as a person solving the problem of staying alive, day after day. Her story lasts because it refuses to comfort. It is not about victory. It doesn't forgive neglect with a happy ending. It asks hard questions about abandonment, colonial harm, and how easily culture can be erased. It gives no easy answers, only truth, silence, and survival. She did not choose solitude. It was forced onto her. That she endured speaks less of heroism and more of pure refusal, and the refusal to vanish just because the world stopped watching. For 18 years, she chose to live. That choice, made again and again with no one to see it, remains one of humanity's most powerful acts of resilience.